Here is the NYPD video that they created to heap praise on themselves, to treat themselves as some kind of brave, heroic fighting force, because they successfully stood down unarmed 19-year-old kids at Columbia. And again, you would think that based on this video, they had just successfully arrested the leaders of all 5 families that constitute organized crime in the United States, and at the same time dismantled all of these street gangs that plague New York City and confronted Al-Qaeda and ISIS as well. Listen to how they talk about what they did here. Here's the chief of the department's conference room. They're showing the planning of this incredibly brave operation.
That's the sidewalk, right? Which sidewalk would that be?
That's Amsterdam.
That's the Amsterdam Avenue.
Do not know that bridge connects to me.
So we got Hamilton is a little.
Can you believe they're putting this with melodramatic music as though there's such high tension as the good guys are going to confront the dangerous bad guys, the unarmed students at Columbia?
Further down. Is this Hamilton right here?
No.
You believe that all the entrances are some kind of...
This is very similar, this picture, like they're in the Situation Room, to the one that the Obama White House released, where Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Brennan were all watching the Navy SEALs go and confront and ultimately kill Osama bin Laden. This is the kind of ethos, the kind of film spirit that they are trying to copy. And again, the implication is that they're confronting dangerous terrorists rather than who they confronted, which are people who didn't resist, who marched out, who used no weapons, who wielded no weapons, who didn't even fight the police at all. But this is what the New York City Police Department is trying to imply.
Somehow barricaded. What entrance do we believe is the entrance where we have the least resistance? We're not going to be moving. Probably down the clock.
Right. You got some planned process up there.
Yeah, we want to start getting the ball rolling.
Police officers with all kinds of helmets and paramilitary gear, and the big truck that they're using to go and confront these students to enter this dangerous building. I mean, they're really acting like they entered some sort of ISIS camp and took down like the world's most hardened and well-armed and dangerous terrorists.
In the Columbia University, we're on the 3rd floor. The methodically going through the building, looking for the student protesters that took over this building. As you can see, the emergency services behind us, conducting operations. We're checking each floor. We're checking each door. As we come over here, you can see that they have set up sort of an encampment inside of the classroom. There's sleeping bags.
Oh my God, they have like sleeping bags on the floor they found. These people are monsters. They're like a minute away from blowing up the entire New York City subway system. Can you believe the New York City Police Department filmed itself in this incredibly simple, rudimentary operation and then produced a propaganda video complete with dangerous music and suspenseful lighting and a narration that suggests that these police officers were engaged in one of the most dangerous operations seen in the history of the New York City Police Department, and yet with great skill and courage, they were able to carry it out and protect the good people of New York City from these terrorists who were occupying this building?
It's all over the place. And when we actually came in here, they actually had the desk barricaded up to the window. So that
oh wow, they had like school chairs, like the kind that you find in nursery school, like those little desks, those little chairs with the attached desk, these little wooden desks. They piled about 8 of them up and put them against the door, and yet the New York City Police Department was able to overcome that incredibly sophisticated show of resistance and force to try and stop them. They didn't blink. They stared down these wooden chairs. They got through the wooden chairs. They put those sleeping bags that they found and they collected them, and they did not allow them to remain on the floor. And courage like that is unfathomable.
that we were going to come in and get them.
Thorough job by ESU so far, as professional as can be, making sure everything is safe before we move on. Feel totally comfortable, totally safe with these guys. This is who you call when it.
Oh, wow, he feels totally safe with like 1,000 heavily armed police officers equipped with paramilitary gear and night vision and goggles and massive guns. He feels totally safe because they're such professionals, even though they're facing down about 100 unarmed college kids. He's not scared at all.
Police need help.
They're showing themselves removing those school chairs, and then they're going in with shields, and there's hundreds of them. And they're taking out college students in handcuffs. There's more scenery of the wooden chairs, the wooden school chairs. There's like a stroller there. Oh, there's a broken window. So this is the mindset. It's very much the mindset. It's this. All of this is about continuously escalating the level of fear to make you think that basically there are Al-Qaeda sleeping cells occupying every American campus. And it's not just rhetoric, it's being accompanied with all kinds of action. Now, watching Fox News, ever since October 7th, I've been talking about this for a long time. And just as a reminder, the first show that we did after October 7th was that Monday, October 9th. And I began the show by talking about the dangers of 9/11 and the way in which people might react to a terrorist attack and completely lose their minds, lose any sense of proportionality. And then, the United States, in addition to suppressing all kinds of civil liberties, went on a spree of invasions and bombing campaigns that lasted more than a decade over a single day attack. And it was very predictable that the same thing was going to happen here. And that's why after October 9th, when I explained why I thought what Hamas did was unjustifiable, I proceeded to urge that people remember the lessons of 9/11. And yet, from the beginning, starting on October 7th, watching Fox News reminded me, it was like watching Fox News on October 13th, 2001, and throughout 2002 and 2003, they were speaking of these protesters with scorn and contempt the way they did the protesters who were trying to stop the invasion of Iraq, while the Fox News company and every one of its personalities was cheering that war and demanding that war, a war that turned out to be a bloody disaster for everyone in that region, for the United States, for our military who lost their lives there over nothing. And Fox News is just right back to doing what they're doing. Listen to the tenor of their coverage.
But beyond that, are you worried that we could see these scenes being used as an opportunity for a terror attack? I'm not saying it's going to happen in the next 45 minutes while we're on air, but let's say this another day of this tomorrow, because the powers that be have let this thing foment. Could you see a lone wolf or an organized group or something seizing on this moment to create a terror attack, or if not that, just to use this as a dry run for one in the future?
Oh, absolutely. I think when you see these crowds and everything that's going on, and based on what was happening in New York, they probably have made some plans altering what they're looking at doing. So you always have that, and then you always have the lone wolf factor that may take the opportunity that just gets into this, and then it is his or her opportunity to do something that they want to personally get that response from.
They were looking at this student protest at UCLA. And the only violence at this protest ended up being the following day, when a bunch of pro-Israel counter-demonstrators showed up and began trying to dismantle the encampment, throwing metal barriers and blockades at the protesters, throwing chemical weapons into them, like tear gas and the like, pepper spray. There were protesters that were injured, pro-Palestinian protesters. That ended up being the only real violence at any of these protests. And yet Fox News looked at this protest and said, should we expect a terrorist attack to emerge out of this? Here from the Free Press, which is Barry Weiss's site, and Barry Weiss, of course, is one of the most fanatical supporters of Israel that the country knows, right next to Ben Shapiro. I mean, it shapes and defines everything she does and says. From Francesca Block, the title was, quote, "The Micro Intifada, How American Protesters Are Being Trained in Militancy." Quote, "Guides created by radical groups are teaching pro-Palestinian students to use violence on campus. Instructions show how to barricade doors with heavy furniture, create a, quote, shield against police using trash cans, ropes, sheets of cardboard, or a corrugated metal banner, and to pick locks using a, quote, technique developed by firemen and criminals. If these less destructive methods don't work," the guide says, quote, "more aggressive options are abundant, such as using a crowbar to open a window." Notice that none of them suggest, let alone encourage, the use of actual violence against protesters. And again, the only real violence that we've seen since these protests began was at UCLA, when counter-demonstrators showed up who support Israel and began physically attacking the pro-Palestinian protesters who were there. And yet the tenor of this media coverage constantly is hysteria. Hysteria. It is unhinged beyond belief. Depicting these people who are protesting a war as starting a violent intifada, as being part of Hamas, part of terrorist organizations. This is the environment, the fear-mongering environment that has ushered in all of these government measures. This is the framework, the groundwork that you need to lay. Here is Laura Ingraham, who decided to invite on a student at North Carolina because the students at North Carolina became heroes of the American right and the pro-Israel wing of the Democratic Party because protesters had raised a flag of Gaza, and they took the flag of Gaza down and put the American flag up, and they were depicted, oh, look, these are the patriots we love. And so Laura Ingraham had on one of these great American patriots there to defend the American flag. Only the problem was he wasn't there to defend the American flag, as he says himself. He was there to defend the Israeli flag. Here's what he told her.
Isaac Mala. Isaac, what motivated you to defend the flag?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'll say, when we talk about motivation for the flag, the primary reason I was on that quad, right, before this ever even began to become an American issue, I was on there because I'm Jewish and I'm Orthodox, and a lot of members that were holding up that flag were. And so we were there really just kind of holding up our Israeli flags and trying to stop hate, and there's been a lot of anti-Semitism around the country. So we were there first and foremost for our country of Israel. When this
These were the people who were depicted as the American patriots we all admire and love so much, these great devotees to the United States. And repeatedly he said, oh, I was there because I wanted to defend our Israel, our country, Israel. I was there because I'm a Jew and I wanted to go and wave Israeli flags. And the whole time the video next to him is playing, and there's a bunch of counter-protesters waving the Israeli flag, not the American flag, the Israeli flag. And they became, these University of North Carolina frat boys, such a cause célèbre that someone created a GoFundMe fundraising account to throw a party in their honor. And I think the last time I looked, it was something like $250,000 had been donated to them by people who decided that these were the great American patriots. And yet he himself said, actually, we weren't there to defend the American flag. We were there to defend our flag, the Israeli flag. Now, under the new law that was passed by the House, and it's not yet a new law, it needs to go to the White House and to be passed the Senate as well, but if that becomes law, one of the things that you are not permitted to say that is formally classified as anti-Semitism for anti-discrimination law on a federal level in education and public accommodations is to suggest that a Jewish person has more loyalty to Israel than they do to the United States. That's banned. That's now officially bigotry. I just showed you that person. Laura Ingraham said, what motivated you? He said, we wanted to go and defend our Israel. We wanted to go and wave the Israeli flag, not the American flag, the Israeli flag. And so if you wanted to observe about this person, clearly he identifies, as he said, with the country of Israel and not the United States. That would be illegal under federal law. That would be classified under this new law that the House passed that it wildly expands the definition of anti-Semitism, and it specifically includes examples, including saying that a Jewish person has more loyalty to Israel than to the United States. That is part of the thing that would be banned, what I just said about that person, based on what he himself told Laura Ingraham. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.